Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Tesla Life, episode 67 for October 3rd, 2018. My name is Russell Frost. I am your very, very well backlit host for today's show. And with me is a man who is not nearly as well backlit, but nonetheless is dressed appropriately, Mr. Mark Coughlin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NHL season 2019 that kicks off tonight in Toronto and Montreal. So we're looking forward to it, as I'm sure some other panelists are, and some yet other panelists don't even care.
What is this hockey thing of which you speak?
And there's one of them.
There's always one jerk.
What kind of ball did they use in that game?
Yeah, that's a ball. That's that little orange thing, right? And they ride around on like roller skates.
That's it. You got it.
Yes. I thought that was the way it goes. Well, speaking of orange and on roller skates, I have no idea how that ties in, but nonetheless, our friend in Chicago, Illinois, Mr. Tony Schaefer.
Hey, it is October, which means the changing of the seasons here in Chicago. Baseball season has ended. Hockey season is starting. But it is always construction season.
Does that mean that the Cubs didn't make it to the playoffs?
Moving on.
Our man in the Pacific Northwest, we like to think of him as Mr. Patrick Connor.
Hello from Oregon. And I'm so glad you didn't go with the orange roller skates and pitch to me. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Patrick. Wherever I can, I try and, hook everybody up a little bit. So there you go. For some reason, the screen doesn't seem to be changing as it normally would to me. I'm not sure why. I don't think there's anything you can do about it, Mark, but I'm just going to toss that in there.
Good, because I was scrambling.
Yeah. No. It's just odd that I would think it would change to me, but it's not. So I don't know. Doesn't matter. We've got a show full of news, and let's focus on that. This first one, I'm not going to go into detail on, but I do want to intro it because that was my heavy sigh face. Did anybody see that down in the corner? That was my why? Tesla's introduced Mad Max mode for autopilot lane changes, and that's coming, or came, as the case may be, in the version 9 software update. You can do Mad Max lane changes.
Do I get a guitar that shoots fire?
Well, that's extra.
What I want.
That is that's if you bought not the flamethrower option with your Mad Max lane change. Yes. So so they're rolling out version 9 to testers, as we've heard, and we've got this new Mad Max, or as it's been referred to in the past, LA style driving. So you have the ability to be a little bit more aggressive with lane changes as Mad Max is forcing you into traffic. Whereas if you had it kind of laid back with the previous normal setting, it would wait for others to let you in. And as Russell knows, if you do that in LA, you go nowhere.
Yeah, so we've talked about this some. Autonomous cars have to learn to drive in the world that we have today. We can't wait until all cars are autonomous and they all drive perfectly, and then only then are you allowed to change lanes. So it's sad but true. They're going to have this aggressive mode, and in some cases, you might even have to just do it yourself, manually drive like a savage.
Like a savage.
What's the point? I mean, just what's the point?
I was as I read this, I think Mad Max was it gets attention, it gets people like us talking about it, but it seemed to me that it's not aggressive. It's just that it will change lanes when it determines that it's necessary. Was that it? Am I missing something?
What I saw was it had 3 levels of lane change, whether on how safe or how aggressive it will be when making that lane change. And that's what the Mad Max was, the most aggressive mode.
But it was the one that if it comes upon a slower moving car, it will change lanes automatically and execute a pass. And that was,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I walked away with.
That's with version 9. That's another part of the upgrade.
Yeah.
That it will diverge your path based on traffic that's in the way and where you're navigating to. So it will make some of the lane changes itself. You can have a flag on it that says, I want to be notified if you're going to change lanes, and the person can accept the lane change or deny it, or you can have it set that it will do the lane changes on its own based on how it sees what's going on.
Yeah.
Exciting times. I can't wait to get this update.
Yeah. So, and Patrick, on our Twitter page, we've had a number of people asking, and I really didn't know the answer to this, to be a tester, are you picked or do you offer, or how does Tesla come up with these testers that are getting the early version?
I've been wondering that myself. I don't have an answer. I would like to know. Yeah.
So anybody out there in the chat room knows, let us know. Send us a note. Let us know what's going on.
Let me guess, you're an employee and you signed an NDA.
Mm-hmm.
That could be
Possibly.
Yep.
But although the guy that's sharing all these pictures,
not an employee,
he's not following his NDA very good.
Yeah, well, there's that, right?
Yeah.
Or is it an employee just passing off the pictures and then he posts them on behalf of them without saying where they came from?
Or he borrowed his friend's car and he's like, I didn't sign an NDA.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so
it is neat. It is one, it's like one more step of the car being able to now, is this the article, or was there another article that said there were still a few quirks with version 9?
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Oh, there are many quirks, I'm sure.
But I mean, a couple of them specifically. One was someone had noted that the car went to change lanes, but it was already like on the far right lane, and it went to change lanes to the right. And they were like, "No,
no more lanes."
And then and either that was because it was trying to execute a pass, or it was trying to exit. I mean, either way, they were like, "Okay, that's still not 100%." And that was they kind of threw it out there as an example that you still have to be in control of your car, regardless of how much you try to cede control over to the car.
Yep, that's a good PSA.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Steering wheel, and you better use it occasionally.
Yeah.
You better use it occasionally. Well, our next story is a YouTube video that I will play, Mark, but or a little bit of it, but maybe you want to talk about it.
Actually, it's a little bit more about version 9 and the Mad Max mode. And
okay.
And this is a video of someone shot in Europe, I believe, that showed how the Mad Max mode was working as they were heading down the highway. So it's shot at night, I believe. It's not the greatest video, but we did just kind of add it in for people that wanted to view this going forward.
Yeah. At what point does the flame shoot out of the side of the car and immolate the vehicle that they're passing?
I keep thinking, with them adding the Atari games and such, I keep thinking of what was that game, the Spy Hunter or something. The car would shoot flames as it drove.
I'm sorry, is this company run by the same guy that sells flamethrowers?
Not a flamethrower. Not a flamethrower.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
And did you guys see that joke where someone posted as Elon Musk, and obviously it was not Elon, but he had indicated that the SEC had knocked him off as chairman of the board, so he's now not chairman of the board.
Yeah. That's. I bet the SEC is totally laughing about that.
Oh, I'm sure they're having a real good laugh too. Yes,
they're
yes,
just
indeed.
like, "Oh, that's so funny! Yeah, you're not a chairman anymore." Oh, it's another $10 million. Who gives a shit?
There you go. There you go.
So there we go.
Yeah, so check out that video if you like to see what Mad Max mode looks like. And I guess our next story is about a German engineer who is really coming to grips with the fact that he sees no viable competition for the Model 3 in his country. So this was a Clean Technica article that was written during the week. And I thought it was really well laid out. A lot of good points in it. But basically, he was knocking down the thought that the other German automobile companies are just waiting to release the Tesla killer car that they've been holding on to. And it really, as you go through the different points in the article, he's really pointing out that if the Germans did have a car that was able to compete highly with the Model 3, then they would have released it. Because as he's pointing out in the article, they're starting to lose market share to the Model 3, not only in the US, but when it gets released in Europe, he believes the same thing is going to happen. So the question would be is if you do have some bit of competition that could stand up to it, why would you not release it in order to save part of your market, even if you were to not make the same profit on the car, or even if you were to lose a little bit? He is indicating that they would certainly release it so that it could at least show that there is a viable option to the Tesla that they offer as well. But yet all of the German car makers are not releasing anything. They're just standing pat. And as we've seen in the figures for Q3 results, which we'll talk about a little bit later, their market share is dropping in the U.S. And it continues to drop.
Yeah, there's a reason there's the phrase "nip it in the bud," and that is because once the tree takes root, it's a lot harder to uproot it. And if they had something to compete with, they would have pulled out a long time ago.
Right. Yeah, and we talked about that on this show. They did not believe that batteries were the answer for a long time. They had invested in diesel and they were investing in fuel cells. And so they thought, oh, we'll do diesel for the next 15, 20 years. And then fuel cells after that. This battery thing is not really ever going to happen. And as many times as we and others have said, hey, you need to pay attention to this. It's been ignored and now it can no longer be ignored. And you can't move that fast in the auto industry. It takes a long time to design a car and ramp the manufacturing and tooling and get all they need all new supply chains to do this. They're not the same parts. So it's going to be a couple years where Tesla has the field pretty much to themselves. We've got the i3 and Porsche has their electric car coming out eventually, but that's certainly not a Model 3 competitor. That's higher end. So yeah, they've got some free runway here, and let's see what Tesla can do with it.
Yeah, and the other thing he kind of pointed out was that, as Tony had mentioned about nipping it in the bud, he came to the conclusion as well that once the German automobiles start to come out with something and they release their first version, Tesla's already a few versions in, and depending on when they release it, they could be another version in, and of course, they're not standing still. They keep pushing forward, getting better as they move along, as we've seen, between the Model S, the Model X, and now the Model 3. It just keeps progressing. So it's going to be really tough for them to catch up, even once they do introduce something that is somewhat competitive.
Yeah.
Right.
So who's ready for the cold, wet smack of reality?
The pace of innovation is what matters most, and Tesla's is pretty fast. So we'll see.
We're ready, Russell.
I definitely am not. I am not ready though, because it just doesn't. There we go. I can't get on the screen for some reason. So you'll just have to look at Mark and not look at my big bloated head, which is fine. So a couple of things.
It's working for me, Russell. So
yeah, I know. Believe me, it's working for me too. The last thing I need to see is a close up.
No, I mean you're coming in full screen on my end.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, it's switching for everyone. But
weird.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good. So Alex Voigt, long-term Tesla investor by his own admission. That doesn't refute anything that he wrote, but let's be clear about the motivation. Another interesting article that I read today, and you know what? I don't know that I didn't. I'm going to have to look. Maybe I'll have it up on for What Drives Us. Interesting story about the Bolt and about, I believe, Cruise, GM's autonomous company, deploying hardware in there. And one of the observations that they made was that they're all of a sudden they're using a new platform, a new Bolt prototype, and it totally changed all the sensor data. Dovetail that in with some observations from Tesla's experience with Model S and Model X sensor data that is different, and how sometimes the sensors perform better in one vehicle as opposed to the other. All of which goes to say, I think the moat that we've been talking about Tesla owning isn't really maybe a moat made out of concrete. It might be a moat made out of sand. If all of this data that Tesla has is very, very vehicle specific, the learning that they're going to be able to grab as they change their cars, if they change their cars, which maybe that's why the models don't change very much. That's an interesting idea. I just thought of that. I don't know. Anyway, here's the point. A company that has 40 different models that could deploy sensors across all of those models and gather all of that data from enormous sales in 6 months suddenly doesn't look so retrograde and look so far behind. My point in all of this is that, yeah, the German companies need to get their act together, and these companies need to deploy electric vehicles because it's the right thing to do. The reason they're not doing it, well, we've talked about that on this show and on What Drives Us. It's probably profits. They can't make, they're making more money selling ICE cars. And I hate that, but I get it because they're in business and that's what they do. So I'm just not sure that, like, I'm totally sworn by Alex Voigt's passion letter about German car companies, get your act together because, you know, like,
your lunch is being eaten.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but yeah, whatever. You know what? At some point,
it is being eaten today, Russell. Maybe that will change in a few years, and you can argue that. But today, absolutely, in this niche of vehicles, which is growing, they don't have a competitive product.
But what you're saying is that they're losing more money by losing the market share than they would be losing if they had a competitive product. Because that's not math I've done, so I don't know.
No, and I don't think any of us have done that actual math. But the question is that if you do not start with something and get involved with it and start moving with it, you can't advance it forward. You can never match it by just coming out with one product and then hoping that the first iteration will be the home run.
Like, right, you're just a Me Too company at that point, and I don't think that doesn't capture mind share. And that's not how you're a leader. That's not. Maybe
I agree.
You can, yeah.
I agree with all that. But that's how you make money. You let somebody else develop it, and you let somebody else break the ground, and you let somebody else educate the public on what it is, and then you come in and you beat their ass.
Right, but it only works that way. Like Patrick said, if they're coming in second, well, not second, but if they're coming in later to be a Me Too company, they better leapfrog what's already out there, or it's going to be seen as a half-assed effort to catch up.
All they have to do is be as good. They don't have to leapfrog them. All they have to do is be as good and
good
probably cheap.
Reliability, they can certainly capture some market share. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who has more market share to lose, GM or Tesla?
Oh, definitely.
GM, absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you. That's all. You guys know I'm on your side as far as getting EVs out there and companies getting out there. There are times, I think, when we beat our little Tesla chest a little too hard. That's all.
Yep. The fact that GM has more market share, I see as all opportunity for Tesla.
Yeah, sure.
And I should do my disclaimer that I am a long-term Tesla shareholder. So go Tesla.
Shorter? Wait, what did you say?
Oh, there we go.
I have not never shorted anything.
Patrick has been outed. Look out.
No, that is not true. Yeah, I was going to say, somebody will watch his show and then all of a sudden Patrick's name will be all over the internet. We found the bastard. Well,
not the case.
Speaking of finding the bastard. Oh,
nice segue.
What?
Nice segue. Interesting little thing that happened this week with the Securities and Exchange Commission. As it turns out, they weren't screwing around. This wasn't a game. They had a case which many on the Tesla side have said was a ridiculous, pointless, and empty case. But apparently Tesla thought it was enough of a case to give the SEC $40 million and to take the action that the SEC prescribed after initially rejecting the settlement, a settlement which, by the way, got worse when they had to go back and get it after Elon.
You mean the second settlement, right?
The second settlement. Yeah, the first settlement offer was approximately half that money-wise and didn't include booting Elon off the board. Yeah. So
I thought the first version did boot him off the board.
It did. Yeah, the first version had booted off the board as well.
Excuse me, but it was 1 year, not 3 years, right?
It was 2 years, not 3 years.
Thank you.
It was 2 years Elon time.
So I'm super curious to know what somebody who is a long investor in Tesla thinks. Patrick Connor.
Oh, yeah. So on this show, I'd said, I think this is going to be a $50 million fine and not a whole lot more. So it turned out to be a 40. Yeah, so it turned out to be a $40 million fine and this 3-year penalty of him stepping down as the chairman of the board. He's still the CEO. The money's right in line with what we thought, which is nothing significant to Tesla or Elon's bottom line. And we've also talked about how the guy takes on way too much. And so I don't like the idea that the SEC prescribed this. When you look at the things that they have done in the past, that they tend to, the fines that they gave out to Goldman Sachs and others, they didn't kick people off of their boards or do things like this. So I think it's a little ridiculous that they did it. But even though they're the ones forcing it, I still think it's not a bad thing for Tesla in the long term.
Not a bad thing for Tesla overall, or you mean not a bad thing for Elon?
In this case, they're one and the same, because if he's overworking himself and then making poor decisions and tweeting when he shouldn't and not able to sleep and all those things, that's bad for the company. So that's bad for him and ripples into his companies. So I don't think it's a horrible thing for Tesla at all. And when this news came out, the market responded and the stock dropped whatever it was, 40 points. And then when the deal was settled on Saturday, it popped right back up to around 300. So the market seems to think, hey, this is over and not that bad. And that's great.
So is the show title $40 million Ambien?
$40 million tweet.
I think the show title should be who's the real tweet monitor at Tesla these days?
Yeah, so that was part of it, right? That they have to have a communications person to monitor his tweets.
Yep.
That is a thankless job.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that's even going to work, because they're not going to take his phone away and say you can't.
Yeah,
tweet.
like does his tweets go to somebody else that has to press the approve button to move them forward?
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
That could be it.
It's going to be a new person each week. As soon as they say you can't tweet that, he's like, "Hey, you're fired." Okay, we got a new person.
So, but I'm just curious, Patrick. Do you think that the tweeting thing total non-issue?
Oh yeah, we've argued about that one on the show multiple times. I think it was
layer.
all in the context of him being transparent, and he's done things that people consider impossible many times over. And so I think he had enough of this is the direction we're going and enough indicators that he had support that I think he really thought it was going to happen. I don't think there was any fraud or disinformation there. It turned out that that's not the direction they went, and I'm glad that he didn't force it to happen just to prove to the SEC that he could. That would have been even worse. So,
how?
If it wasn't the right thing to do, after he talked to investors, after he found out that individual investors couldn't keep their investments, that there were other retirement funds and things that wouldn't be allowed to invest in whatever vehicle they were going to create, if he went through with it and took the company private anyway after he learned that it was going to cause all these problems for some investors. But if he had done it, I'm not suggesting that he would have, but if he would have done that just to prove to the SEC that he was serious about this and avoid any penalties, that would have been horrible.
Okay. I think we're just, obviously we disagree, right? That's not a big surprise here. We just.
I think that
Elon. Yeah, please.
I think you went too far. I really do. I think that he was playing in the realm of an entity, the SEC, which he knew what they would accept, what they wouldn't. It's not like he's new to the game. He's run other public companies in the past.
No, he hasn't. Everything else he had was when PayPal was acquired. When he was ousted, I don't think they were public yet, and then they got bought by eBay. And SpaceX is not public. Zip2 was not public. I don't think anything else he did was public. I could be wrong about PayPal.
A CEO with no experience running a public company is running a public
company. No, I'm not saying it was
okay. I'm just
excusable. I just Mark had said something.
I thought that he was at the helm when it was public at PayPal, but I definitely could be wrong. But I guess the question or the thing is that he went too far based on the rules of the SEC. He knew that wasn't. Maybe he didn't know, or maybe he did know, but he got slapped because of what he did. I am just hopeful that that's a lesson learned, and he won't. He will try to drop some of this stuff. That he will stay within the rules that he was operating in. And go ahead, Tony.
So did Tesla, Elon, one and the same, have backing for 420 to go private?
The SEC found no evidence of that.
The SEC found that he had not discussed a specific price, but that they did have commitments for people that wanted them to go private and would have supplied funds at a reasonable price.
I didn't see that at all. What I saw was that there was no evidence that there was any funding at all.
Oh, that's not what I have read.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a timeline that they did on another podcast that showed who he had talked to, when he had talked to them, how he had informed the board, and they had approved him to discuss this with investors. And that he had discussed it with the Sovereign Wealth Fund, and they were willing to put money up. In fact, they were the ones that had suggested it in the first place multiple times. And then he'd also mentioned how he wanted to go that direction publicly before. So, yeah. Anyway, we're still not going to agree on this, but that's okay. It's all over now, and it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Well, we'll see.
Right.
It's an expensive lesson, and I hope you learned it.
That's the thing.
Where the line is.
Did he learn it? Will he learn it? Is the question. So,
well, I mean,
right.
I think the answer to that is already clear. I mean, he's already sort of pushed the line a little bit. And as Patrick said, $40 million, or well, 20 million comes out of Elon's pocket. 20 million comes out of Tesla's pocket. But
well, to be fair, the 20 million that's coming out of Tesla's pocket, Elon is going to buy $20 million in stock from the company. Right. And then that's what they'll pay the fine with. So
he's going to take 20 million out of his back pocket and put it in his front pocket. I mean, and let's be either way, $40 million. Does Elon care about $40 million, Patrick?
When you're a billionaire, that's couch change.
Right. Doesn't give a shit. So the idea that this is going to have an impact seems like possibly wishful thinking if you think that Elon did something wrong and wanted to change. If you don't think he did anything wrong, then no big deal. No,
well, I think losing his chairman seat definitely hurts his pride. Losing the battle, I know he wanted to fight them, but he had good lawyers that advised him otherwise to just get this over with. Normally, these drag out for at least 2 years. So the fact that his is done in 2 or 3 months, that's great news. Now we have more certainty. It's not going to be looming there over the company for a long time.
Fair enough.
And the SEC could go after those bankers that it's been tracking for a long time.
We can hope. We can hope.
Yeah, this isn't Norway.
It frees them up. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think the description is the toothless SEC is usually the way that's put.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of toothless, no, this is not a dental joke.
How to Train Your Dragon?
Our friends at Electric reported, along with several other people this week, that Tesla is looking for people to test the full self-driving. And to do that, they're offering free autopilot upgrades if these people buy a new Tesla. They'll give them the hardware. They'll give them the service, as it were, free of charge. Now, this group of people isn't everybody. It's just employees.
Oh, darn it.
I know.
Yeah.
I had almost sent in my request, but
Because I read that wrong. I thought they were going to give me a free car if I purchase autopilot.
You might go down to the delivery center and see if you can get a part-time job and then go buy a car.
Ooh, there we go.
They only take volunteers, the delivery center.
And that's working well, yeah.
I just pick up the crumbs. There's any little Model 3 sitting in the corner somewhere.
I want to work 1 hour a month. Now do I qualify?
I mean, I get that one. That's it. I like that story, John. Just walk in and go, where's my car? I'm almost sure. Well, anyway, so does anybody have any thoughts on this? Is this, I mean, it's interesting to me that he is limiting it just to employees, or we assume Elon made this decision by himself, which he probably did, but that Tesla is limiting this just to employees who are buying vehicles. That's obviously going to be a fairly small pool of people. Is there a good reason for this, or is
small
it just
but controllable?
Oh, yeah. So it's the same reason I think that they rolled out the Model 3 to employees first. It's a fast feedback cycle. If they find problems, they can report it internally. And everything that Tesla does is under a microscope, and it's put out in blogs and forums and talked about on podcasts. So
Like
doing this, yeah, just like this one. So I think it's a smart move on their part. If you want to be able to do development and get feedback and not have that level on your alpha or pre-alpha version of something, you want to be able to put it out and get feedback. That's the best way to get a good product. But you don't want people talking about all the warts that it has when you know it's not ready. So I think it's a really smart move.
Yeah. So you guys know I work in a work with an engineering firm. We do building controls, and we lobbied as employees to be able to install our own products in our own buildings, and not just that, but new products in our own buildings, so that if something goes wrong, it's the engineers who'll know about it first.
right.
Unfortunately,
it's called dog fooding.
Say what?
It's called dog fooding.
Dog fooding?
Yeah, there's some dog food company where the owner of the company would eat the dog food every Thanksgiving, and that it became a big deal in the company culture. And it was a statement of how great their product is, and
Okay.
that phrase has spread out to the especially in the high tech industry of using your own products is called dog fooding.
And it was all fine and dandy until that owner died.
They're barking.
That is so not
He
right.
lived 1/7 of the time he should have.
He was a good boy.
But yeah, there we go.
He's such a good boy.
Oh,
It was such a good
jeez.
movie.
I don't even know what to say. I've never heard that, Patrick. I love that idea, though, the dog fooding concept.
Well, yeah, there we go. Episode whatever, dog fooding.
Dog fooding. Oh, that might be. I like that title.
Self dog fooding.
It's I mean, I don't think there's any mystery here. It's obvious. It's controllable. You get them to sign an NDA. You know, maybe you're incentivizing them to buy the car in some cases.
They're
Yeah,
actually offering premium options too, as
Right.
as the article
Yeah.
had indicated.
You get the premium upgrade and you get the full self-driving. So that's about $13,000 to the employees. And then you also get the state and federal incentives depending on where you're at. So now you're getting a really good deal on a car with some really cool features. And in return, you send them some data so they can improve it. I'll sign me up. That's awesome.
In return, you only have to work 75 hours a week. But
I
only
wonder
at the
if you can.
end of the
I wonder if you
course.
can bill your time driving around now.
Ooh,
Does that count as work?
Yeah, I think
I
so.
guess if you're a tester.
I mean, obviously, is there some element of risk to this? Is the
Oh, yeah.
reason they're doing this?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't
think
want
so.
to make too much of that because
There
I'm not a
must be,
phone
there
guy.
must be a little bit.
I think,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, definitely they want real world experience. They want real, hands-on drivers, and they don't want to push it out where people will be making YouTube videos of every mistake.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's a small enough group that they could do training and say, okay, here's the things you need to do. Here's where you put your hands on the wheel. Make sure you're paying attention to whatever. They could do some serious driver training, and I think people need that early on. It's a whole new way of driving, and most people aren't that good at driving. So some driver training on the system and just driving in general, I think both would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
I support that. Well, let's see what's up next. Not that story.
Okay, so in the chat, the idea is to use employees with the poorest performance reviews to test Autopilot.
Autopilot as a punishment. It's like a Darwinian, I mean,
Tesla Thunderdome. 2 employees enter, 1 leaves.
It's like the evolution of the Tesla employee, right? The strong will survive.
It really is sort of Elon-esque. You know what I mean? He likes that sort of Darwinian solutions. So I'll give you that.
It's like Office Space. We didn't have to fire him. We just fixed the glitch.
Right.
We just fixed the glitch.
He's down in the basement.
My red stapler.
Yeah. So the next story is sort of a recapitulation, no, maybe not, of a story we just did a few minutes ago. Teslarati reported that, as Patrick mentioned, even though the stock dipped down, it dipped back up, and then it's dipped back down, and then it'll dip back up. I think all of us on the show have repeatedly said volatile. If you're a Tesla stock owner, the word is volatility. And it is a day trader's wet dream. It goes up and down every day, every week, constantly.
As long as you're getting the highs and lows right, then you're excited.
Otherwise you're pretty depressed all the time. Yeah.
That is not my, but I mean, but that variance is certainly, that's, I mean, a reason why people love the Tesla stock so much. It's like, hey, I bought in at 260 and the next day it was 290. Thank you. I mean, that doesn't happen with a lot of other stock at that level.
Absolutely.
I would be like the guy constantly changing lanes and always the wrong one.
Yeah. That's why I don't trade that way. I buy and I hold for at least a year.
Well, there you go. I think our next story, we're going to go to Mark because Mark has some pictures.
I got some pictures.
Mark has some pictures of deliveries in Hawthorne. Wait.
Who's that guy? I've seen him before.
Criminal behind the counter? Oh my God.
Okay, the SEC does not
it's a civil
criminal charges against anybody. That's the Department of Justice. The SEC can only do civil cases.
Why do I see that?
Wow. Pointing out the literalness of the jokes.
Well, there were a lot of articles that said he was charged with fraud. The SEC cannot make fraud charges. So they were, as soon as you see that headline, you know that article is completely inaccurate. And it's not just a pedantic pointing out the difference. One you can go to jail for, one you can't. So
I think they were referring
to an important distinction.
Opinion.
I oddly enough, I actually agree with Mark on this one.
Go ahead.
So what we've got here is Elon and Franz, apparently. No picture of Franz, but they were out helping with deliveries on the Sunday, the end of the Q3, at the Hawthorne Design Studio, which also doubles as a pickup point for vehicles. So they were delivering vehicles at Hawthorne, and some lucky people were able to speak with Elon and Franz while they were milling around the delivery center and helping out where they could. So it was an exciting meet and greet for some people that were lucky enough to be picking up their cars at that time. And another interesting thing that was at the Hawthorne site was the next generation Roadster was on full display. And get
That's
a load
where Franz was there.
Yeah, possibly.
His car.
He showed up in his car.
Yeah.
and get a load of the display that's showing. It looks like a map. It looks like actually a nighttime map. And you've got the little icons across the bottom, similar to other vehicles, but obviously slightly different than what we see in our current Teslas now. And that yoke steering wheel, that airplane-esque steering wheel, is still in place in the car. And there's a shot of it as it was sitting outside of the superchargers at the Hawthorne site. So that would be exciting to see, like just have a close-up of that car and be able to take a look inside of it personally. But it was on full display and was there. And of course, when we posted this information on the Twitter feed, we had many people that replied back immediately, hey, can I drop by and see it? Do I need to be picking up a car? And we had people heading over there immediately once they saw the post. So I didn't hear back if they were able to see the car or not, but a number of people were going to try.
Very cool. I
Another
wonder
reason-
if that software is the next version that's going to be in the version 9. Because we've heard that the Model 3 and S and X are going to have similar software, similar screens going forward as far as the layout goes. And with the S and X right now, the buttons are across the top, and with the 3, they're along the bottom. And that one had them on the bottom. So I think that might be a preview of what's coming for the S and X.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see what that display. Well, who knows? It's a prototype too, right, Patrick?
Right.
So
yeah.
So things could drastically change, but it's interesting to see that is kind of the way that they have it set up on that bar that runs between the two seats and runs right into the dash.
Yeah, that's nice.
I'm just glad to see that Franz isn't wrecking the car. Okay, that's all.
Yeah. Hey, getting back to Elon doing the deliveries.
Yeah.
So David and Lee have been having a go in the chat room. So David speculates that this is actually Elon doing the community service portion of his SEC settlement. And Lee wants to know, now that he's been demoted to a delivery person, maybe he can test drive the autopilot.
Always a great discussion in the chat room.
Love that. Way to go, chat room. Way to go. Our next story is about, wait, not that. Wow, I am a little behind the times here. I'm sorry. Well, we should talk about third quarter sales results.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that just ended, and obviously maybe somebody here cares about that. But you know what? Mark, I'm dumping this in your lap, my friend.
Absolutely. Deliveries for the third quarter turned out to be 83,500 in about that number for S, X, and 3. And Model 3 production hit a new high, again, another record of 53,239 units. So a huge jump again as Model 3 continues to push all of Tesla's numbers up. The S and X, stayed pretty good, stayed right in the middle as to what they were previous month. But obviously the 3 jumped a great deal, and the deliveries correspond to about 80% of the company's entire deliveries last year in the quarter. So that kind of gives you the idea of the magnitude of the number of units that were pushed out. It's a huge amount, and the company is still pushing out more as time goes along. So they didn't talk a lot about the rate that was sustained, such in the past that they hit the 5,000 per week. They've certainly hit the 5,000 a few more times and gone beyond that. And there was even some discussion that they had spurts getting into the 6,000 area as well, but they weren't sustained. So it's good to see that they're still ramping up. They're still delivering cars all over the place. It is interesting to see as to where the bottlenecks are now. They've certainly changed since the Model 3 started to ramp up. But at this point, more and more units are going out, and the numbers are still going up. So, as someone that's novice to it, I really don't know, if they're actually on track to where they want to be, if they're a little bit behind. But certainly, from someone looking from the outside in, it appears that things are going well. Maybe not completely to their timetable, but they're certainly going in the right direction.
Yeah, this is incredible growth. And whatever estimates they had are not as relevant as the results they're getting. And they're getting some great results. And we had talked about how, what do you mean they can't find carriers to get these out? Well, it's because they're not just making 10 or 20% more than they had previously. They're making, in some cases, double or what they were the previous month. So it's a rapid growth, and that's difficult to forecast, difficult to manage. When they get, now they're getting to the level where it is going to be incremental growth probably for the rest of this year, and not doubling month over month like it has in some cases. So hopefully that means that a lot of these kinks are worked out of the system, and we'll see steady growth from here out for the rest of the year. And the rest of this year is really important because the tax credit's expiring at the end of the year. So not expiring, it's going down by half in the U.S. So you want to get your car before the year ends. And that means that Tesla's going to have to continue to ramp quickly. I know they wanted to get to 10,000 per week this year, and that's a great goal. Even if they don't achieve it, if they can continue to make 5,000 or 6,000 or more per week, that they're going to have an awesome quarter.
Yeah, and I don't know if 10,000 a week is achievable, but certainly watching the strides that have happened over the past 3 months, I wouldn't say it's completely out of reality because a lot of people didn't believe they would be where they're sitting now in volume, and certainly they've made, as Patrick said, great strides over the past quarter to ramp up the amounts.
Yeah. I got an article here with some Bloomberg images talking about expected growth, and you can see, and this article was written a while back and actually projects 10,000 a week by the end of 2018, and then the next image shows what this looks like, and I mean that's a hell of a curve. It goes to the end of 2018, and it looks like it just keeps going. So this was the expectations, and they're hitting it.
Yep, the S curve has started. It's the numbers are incredible, really, when you think about it. Coming from the dribble that started when the Model 3 was released, they certainly have been able to ramp up at a dramatic speed. So, be interesting to see what happens through the fourth quarter. And as Patrick said, time is of the essence because of the federal U.S. credit going to drop in half. So they're trying to push out as many of them as they can. And there was another story that we didn't publish here tonight, but there was another story about the sales of the Model 3 have now beat the Toyota Corolla in numbers.
Oh, wow.
So that is another a testament to the number that are rolling out of the factory.
And it's a significantly higher price point, so that's even more.
It's not even not the same market. The car is completely in a different market, and that certainly can be people because there's pent up demand. There were 400,000 orders, people wanting to buy the car. I'm sure a number of people stepped up a bracket in order to get it early or to get it when they felt they could.
Right.
So certainly that is at play here. We don't know what will happen once the majority of those orders have been fulfilled. Although many speculate that now those 400,000 owners or whatever number have their cars, they're now all going to their friends and saying, see what I got? Would you like to drive this? Check this out. And they're becoming someone that's pushing more sales back into the company because, everyone loves a test drive. And if you get to test drive your neighbor or friends or family member's car, people love that because there's no salesman push. It's just, here's what I got. What do you think? Take it for a spin. What do you think? And that's a great way to be introduced to a car.
Russell, you're awfully quiet there. Are you doing the math on how many carriers Tesla's going to have to build in order to deliver all those cars?
I got nothing on this. I got nothing.
So yeah, there's about 100,000 cars, Model 3s out on the road now.
Yep.
So yeah, that's 100,000 walking advertisements for it.
Absolutely. See, I agreed.
Yeah.
Our next story is another debut for the Model 3 and for Tesla, this time at the Paris Motor Show. Tesla's a company that doesn't advertise, that doesn't usually do a lot of heavy car show stuff that the other car companies do, yet, and I'm not saying this is wrong, here they are at the Paris Motor Show.
Here's a shot of it.
Thank you, Mark. I was just going to put up there we go. Look at the people crowded around the booth, looking at the Teslas in Paris and talking about them, maybe even ordering them, who knows what. But there it is. And, this is, at some point, Tesla's going to be a mainstream auto company. And at some point, some things like this, I think it's a good thing for them to do.
Mhm.
I have to say that I saw the Tesla booth now twice in Toronto, and it looked nothing like this. Like, this is a dramatic booth, much larger, a 2-story setup. Like, this is a spectacular booth.
That is nice.
I don't know if they've shown this booth anywhere but Paris at this point. I believe it's a new booth, but spectacular. Like, It is certainly one that allows them to show all their vehicles in a spacious area and have lots of leftover, like the lounge upstairs and who works in the glass booth office? Like, who's going into the glass fishbowl is what I want to know.
There's nothing relaxing about that upstairs. Those are what's called in the business slamming booths. That's where you're either closing retail sellers or you're closing deals with other companies.
Right.
And the glass one is the pretty one that you get to overlook all the activity and imagine how important you'll be when you're connected to that company. And I'm not talking just about, I've been to a million trade shows. So, Patrick, you're looking at me.
Oh, no, I was just thinking, it looks like they took one of their stores. Oh, sorry.
Oh, let's
Elon?
all take Patrick's call.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll answer.
What do you want? No.
So yeah, that looks like they took one of their stores and just moved it to the motor show.
Right.
Which is a good idea. You keeping that same sort of visual appearance that's an excellent.
And I love that they went up. Don't see that much in car shows. At least I haven't seen it in car shows. Usually,
when they're charging you a lot for space, you see I've seen 3-story.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's insane.
Right.
Yeah, it just depends on the company and the show.
Yeah.
Go to like CES in Vegas, and you'll see a lot of that because it's so freaking expensive.
Yeah.
There you go. Hey, good for Tesla stepping out. And I'm almost finally, we have a story about Tesla's tent city expanding. Inside EVs claim that Tesla's taken out a permit for another 80 by 50, sprung structure. An 80 by 50 sprung structure. This allegedly, again, according to the article, is going to be where they prep and wrap the vehicles prior to putting them on car carriers and getting them out to customers. This extra space is needed. So cheers to Tesla for filing the paperwork, getting the permit, and getting that done. I don't know. I don't think the tent's up yet, but
hear that, Patrick? You could have gotten your car pre-wrapped.
I wouldn't have had to wait 2 weeks once we got here.
And people that didn't get their cars wrapped, they're going to be sent a package of wrap in the mail.
Roll of saran wrap. Is that
exactly. Do yourself.
Absolutely.
Do it yourself, Mark.
So some sprung structures could start springing up all over the place. They were so successful. Well, actually, even SpaceX is now using some sprung structures at the port of Los Angeles as well, as we showed last week. So this is whoever got in with the account for Sprung Structures for Tesla, I'm sure is laughing now all the way to the bank because they're putting up structures everywhere.
Yeah, we got to find out if that's a publicly traded company.
Exactly, that would be a good thing to find out because Tesla is certainly saying that is the answer. So,
good idea.
People made a lot of fun of them I can't believe they're building cars in a tent. Hey, whatever, they're getting results. And look, it works so well, they're going to do some more of it. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. And Russell, you were alluding to maybe if there was one possibly last thing, and you would be absolutely correct. We got an email, we got a Twitter prompt that was sent to us from Calgary, Alberta, from Jennifer, who wanted to give us with Model 3s a warning of what is to come. So I'll just share this photo on screen.
Oh no!
And we had a snowfall in Calgary.
Whoa!
And what she wanted to point out was that if you put your snow brush in the back of the car in the trunk, and then open the trunk to get at it, that snow's going to slide right into the trunk.
Designed in California.
Exactly. So there is a warning for us in the north that keep the snow brush either in the front or in the cabin of the car because you don't want this to happen to you.
Yeah,
that's good advice.
That is super good advice. And
so,
I mean,
but if you keep your brush in the trunk, you keep it next to your little shovel so that you can shovel out the trunk.
That's just sad.
Yeah.
How sad are you when there's like 6 cubic feet of snow in your trunk of your brand new Model 3?
And it's not going anywhere for the next 6 months.
Yeah. No, you got to shovel that stuff out. You can't just leave it sit. If you just started the winter, you don't want that sitting in there. That's for sure.
By spring, that'd be nice and mildewy. Yuck.
And one final thing is I want to give a shout out to my daughter that you can see over my shoulder here that she produced this fantastic Model 3 painting that I have hanging on my wall. So thanks very much. That was much appreciated. Maybe I'll throw a picture of it up on our Twitter feed as well. And if you don't know already, you can follow us at The Tesla Life throughout the week on Twitter. See what's going on as stories break and we get them published. You can also follow us on the Tesla Life #1 on Facebook. And please, if you haven't already and you're watching this, press the subscribe button and help us out. Give us a number. We would love for you to press that subscribe button, help us out for us to grow in the charts. And you also, if you press the alarm button, you will get alerted when the show starts for future episodes. So,
and Mark will send you a free painting. That's a joke.
Yeah, delivered by Patrick personally.
Yeah.
I don't know how good we're doing by whether or not Mark has to put up a sprung structure outside his house.
Yeah. I hope he's doing it in a sprung structure. That'd be the best.
There you go.
That'd be the best.
You can charge for those. I think there's a market. There's about 400,000 people that might buy one.
Exactly. That's very cool. Patrick, any shout outs?
I am with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org, and I blog at carswithcords.net about all my fun Tesla driving.
Cheers. Tony, anything?
Shout out as usual to everybody in the chat. Like Mark said, if you haven't yet subscribed to the show or hit the bell for notifications, hit the bell and then jump into the chat. Someone's got to help keep these guys in line because they are off the hook.
Yeah.
Ask them for show titles. We get good stuff from the chat room.
I'm still thinking about dog fooding. I'm sorry. That one's stuck in my head. But chat room, if you got something, go for it.
$40 million in dog food.
As always, I want to thank Lee Moon for our theme music. He composed and performed and lets us use it for free because that's our theme music budget. Thank you, Lee Moon. You're the man.
Thanks, Lee.
I want to send a shout out to my friends at Tesla Inc., who many of whom came off of 60 to 80 hour work weeks last week. And I talked to a few of them, and yeah, they're tired.
Man, are they tired?
I thought that was a tattoo place that only did Tesla logos.
I know. It is. Don't talk of it. That's where people
really busy at that tattoo parlor.
Yeah, they've just been really. All the new Model 3 owners are driving in. They need to get their little red car tattooed on their arm. But it's not Tesla Motors anymore. It's Tesla Inc.
Yeah.
So, yeah, cheers to all of them. Get some rest, for God's sakes. Have a vitamin, maybe, take a nap, something.
But no Ambien, please, no Ambien.
Yeah.
Yeah, rest up now because you'll get to do this again at the end of December.
Yeah.
It's coming.
It's without a doubt. Without a doubt. That's all I got. Anybody else, Mark?
Nope, that's it. That's it.
Then thanks to everybody in the chat room. As always, thanks to all of you. Tune in next week and find out what is going on in the Tesla life.